Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to ASL Season 14 Revenge Battles. This time we have Royal going up against Hero, a rematch of the semi-final, which was absolutely epic. We're going to be starting off on Neo Arcanewind. Let's go ahead and hop into it. Starting the upper left-hand corner as our brown Zerg, we have Hero, and in the upper right-hand corner, starting as the yellow Terran, we have Royal. And before I talk about how epic this matchup is going to be, you've got Neo Arcanewind, which has the 3 in-base expands, but otherwise performs a bit like an island map until you open up the power generators, Alnaga temples, and other bits of map. I'm not sure what to call it. Map clutter? In between. I believe Zerg has a very high win rate on this. Oftentimes a problem for Zerg is establishing a second gas on the stereotypical island maps. I do like this era of new pseudo-weird island maps and attempts at them. And I think this, having the weird clutter, is the way to get it done. Overlord Scout first for Hero. I'm going to say it, I almost feel like the semifinals felt like the real finals to me. With Royal in Hero and also same thing on the opposite side of the bracket. The matches were epic. They really felt like they could go either way. I guarantee you Hero in this matchup really wants to prove something, because it is possible that had he advanced to the finals, he might have ended up being the champion. Barracks being built to the south, potentially to lift off and get a quick scout to the 6 o'clock, or to the, not the 6 o'clock, the bottom right hand location. Check that spawn. We do see a drone moving out towards the natural for a 12 hatch, going to be off position for Hero. A distance away from the gas, so it looks like that is mostly to get rapid mineral fill. First gas being grabbed from Royal. It is a race to the air. One thing is if Mutalisks can get in play, especially with sufficient larvae and sufficient gas, you can pump a lot of them very, very rapidly, and Wraith are absolute paper airplanes. There have been a lot of new builds lately, though, with Valkyrie play that could potentially negate this. We'll have to see. Royal actually moving out. Is he going to plot? This is an interesting play. Is he just going to go ahead and grab another command center? No, he's building a factory. I like that. Actually, possibly he could float this factory out to the upper left as well. The barracks already floating to the bottom right, and that could help negate initial scouting information. The Overlord is not in position to see that. The creep will be a bit of an early indicator, but it is possible to float that factory out, get vision, and kind of plant things down outside of vision range. Second hatchery nearly online. We do have gas. You have to assume it's just going to be a 2-hatch Mutalisk opener spawning pool finishes there. Although we did see some sort of adjustment in the previous best of, where we saw Hydralisk Zerglings taking down temples earlier in the match. A little bit more of a risk versus Terran versus Protoss, though, especially because you're expecting Corsair versus whatever else. Factory being lifted off. And I'm curious if it's even just going to plant down land and build a vulture immediately, just to check this upper left. Double starport to follow up, so it looks like it is potentially going to be a Wraith continuation rather than an army being dropped and an armory continuation. The factory starting to float out, and this could be initial trouble here for Hero, especially if it lands and just immediately constructs. So initial base found. Yeah. Oh, this could be huge. This could be game ending right here. I love this play. So Royal producing an initial vulture. We don't have any Zerglings. It's nothing but drones on Hero's side of the map. So yes, this was a risky build. Maybe it was cross spawn. Looks like we do have 4 Zerglings out, but 4 Zerglings against a vulture with sufficient micro, that's just not going to cut it. So we're going to need some miraculous micro out of Hero not to end the game essentially right here. Drones scattering, pulling off the line to try to defend. The vulture backing off. Has plenty of space. 1 Zergling picked off. This is also an immense amount of lost mining time for Hero as he's pulled absolutely everything. Second vulture in construction as Royal has realized, yep, this is the location. And honestly, as soon as that second vulture is produced, that could be GG immediately. Drones surrounding, able to get the kill on that vulture, but a Brethren's already out in the field, and it looks like it's going to find open air where it can do the infinite micro versus these drones, and I think that is it. Zerglings still trying to micro against this. I don't think it's going to be sufficient. We do have a hatchery and a spire being built at the natural expansion, but this is 2 Wraith now joining the battle. 2 vultures, drones getting wrecked left and right, blood out on the field, plus no mining's happened this entire time. There's GG. So, with that, a rapid start to the matches. Game 1 goes to Royal. Unsurprising. We'll go to a more standard map in Vermeer for the next match, which hopefully we'll see a longer game. But previously, when I was doing the recordings, there was the big space in between each match, kind of rough transitions. So forgive me as you hear the cycling sounds in between the games in the background. I'm going to try to make it that so there's a little bit less abruptness as we switch from match to match. A lot of people have asked in the space of these replays, first of all, people oftentimes will say, hey, was this live? No, not live. Off replay. As you can see, top right, upper left-hand corner, by the way, with Royal starting as the teal Zerg. Bottom left-hand corner, we have Hero starting as the purple Zerg. Not live. I believe these matches were played a month or a month and a half ago as of February in 2023. It is possible that they're very recent replays. In between the finishing of ASL, obviously, and the start of ASL Season 15, which also, as of this recording, is happening shortly. I'm recording this on... I won't get into all that. Point being, yes, this is off replay. They were played very recently, so both players are fresh, and they're maybe a little bit of additional strength in that they've had the practice time between ASL Season 14 and ASL 15 to try to make adjustments to maybe equalize things, maybe get a little bit of advantage. So it's a really solid preview of what potentially could be the ASL 15 champion or ASL 15 finals. I would not be shocked, to, especially if they end up on opposite sides of the bracket, to see Royal and Hero in the finals. Hero, actually, with the depth that he went, has arguments for being the top Zerg at the moment. Going for an overpool build from the bottom left, is going to have first scout with that Overlord. It's actually surprising because he knocked off Snow on his way through, and Snow managed to survive that absolute group of death with what I would previously consider, and I still consider, the top 3 Zerg of Queen, Sulky, and I'm always missing one. Queen, Sulky, and I'm just going to leave it at that. You can check the bracket and you'll see the other person I consider, Soma being the 3rd there. Got it in my brain. Drone moving out to go ahead and grab that natural expansion. SCV is going to get first scout as well for Royal. Royal, an absolute deserving champion, is going to have to defend his title, prove that it's not a fluke. There have been a lot of one-hit wonders. One thing with way back in the day, when you had the OSL championships and the MSL championships, because of the format of OSL, for whatever reason, it was just considered a little bit more prestigious to take an OSL championship than an MSL championship, maybe because of the best of 5 format in the finals and whatever not. Although it was best of 5, I believe, for the OSL finals generally as well. SV getting that gas time intelligently. We have an initial barracks constructing Marines Overlord hanging out over the high ground. I believe it can see that bunker from that position. No gas as of yet, so it looks like this is going to be just a bunker expand, potentially. Bunker at a solid defensive position. Zerglings initially making their way out, but realizing they're not going to be there in time, pulling back to take care of that SCV scout. But regardless, I feel like ASL doesn't really have a competing tournament at the moment. Morph to layer, so it looks like it's going to be 2-Edged Mutalists to start. But in MSL, you saw a lot of one-hit wonders, like Mind, where he took down a final, really didn't have a repeat. At the same time, you had the same thing on the opposite side of the OSL. So I digress all the way around. Point being, you take a championship, it makes you a good player. You take 2 championships, you establish yourself as one of the dominant players on the scene. Royal, I think, I think Royal is one of the most dominant players on the scene. I think people still think that Light still might be the #1 Terran, and we'll have to see once Flash is back out and able to play again, what kind of movements in the scene happen once again, Flash being the most dominant player of all time. Engineering Bay, Academy behind this. So it looks like it is going to be, and I kind of like this play, Engineering Bay before that. This is especially seeing the initial Mutalisk opener. In-base 3 hatch, so 2.5 hatch. This has been much more popular as of late, and this has been a strong, I've seen this a lot at the higher levels, this being the highest level right here. Gives you a little bit more larva, a little bit more challenge to go out and get an additional base, but with the additional larva, without having to worry about defending, I feel like there's less pressure to rush to lurkers. Gives you a little bit more map control in the mid game. And Zerg have been moving more towards this build. It's becoming, in my opinion, the new meta. It's kind of the new cutting edge versus Terran, although with the new Valkyrie build, there's been all sorts of disruption and challenges. This, however, looks like it's just going to be the +1 weapons 5 racks, which can decimate Mutalisk lines very, very rapidly, gives a lot of map control very rapidly, and I'm curious how the in-base 3 hatch will deal with it, especially because when you go for this in-base 3rd hatchery, the 2.5 style of play, it can be a challenge to establish additional bases. If you need to rely on gaining map control and pinning your opponent back in the base. 5 barracks up. We'll see if there's a 5th, or if he's just going to stick to 4, which would be an interesting, a little bit more of an economic adjustment on this play. Having 1 less barracks, you still end up with a lot of Marines. One of the problems, though, is with the initial Mutalisk pressure, Mutalisk being constructed, we don't see a +1 weapons upgrade. Never mind, there's a +1 weapons upgrade, just didn't have quite enough gas. The Marines stimming, pushing those Zerglings off. 3 Marines out in front as well. Important also to keep the Zergling count so there's low, so those turrets don't have to deal with additional problems should the Zerglings slip through. Range being upgraded, 1/3 finished as the Mutalisks are making their way out. Right about that 6-minute mark, 3 turrets being constructed and a 4th turret. Maybe this is to make up for that lack of 5th barracks. But a massive amount of turrets at the natural expansion. 1 SCV dead, 2 SCVs picked off, and Hero slipping right back out. Still able to get a handful of SCV kills, which is really impressive, but losing a Mutalisk just because of the sheer volume of turrets at the natural. And Royal, with the large Marine count, especially with the death of that Mutalisk, might want to press forward. Hero really going for us, trying to stay... I think he's trying to make sure that stay out of the range of this turret and just get that hit, but all 4 turrets are firing. I think at the very extent of the range, maybe can make it happen. Did manage to get a few SCV kills, but honestly, he's softening up his Mutalisks quite a bit, and Royal has a sizable army that is moving out. And I don't know now that with these Mutalisks, against the +1 plus range finishing here in a moment, that the Mutalisks are going to be sufficient to defend Hero's natural expansion. He's, yes, dropping some Sun colonies, but the thing is if Hero just holds up in a moment, he'll have, especially some follow-up troops, might be in a sufficient position to lock Hero into just those 3 bases. More Mutalisks have been constructed. We have the Pure 9. That will be a larger count to deal with that potential harass. Royal moving the troops out toward the bottom right-hand side of the map, which... and another turret being established. You can see Royal playing 6 to 1, half dozen of another, checking to see if there's an additional base in the bottom right, is going to find nothing. I think he went for the Comsat game, maybe didn't realize it was 2.5 hatch, or is just confirming it now. So bottom right finds nothing. Let's see if he moves right back out and plants himself down at the natural expansion of Hero. As long as he keeps that additional base from being constructed, he is in a position to follow this up to close things out. The Mutalisks in large numbers now engaging this wayward attack force. Hero wants to swat that down because that's the difference between being able to take an additional expansion versus not. That drone moving out. The Mutalisks actually occupying this, and this is going to be unfortunate for Royal as that drone is making its way bottom right to sneak that expansion now. And Royal, between comsats and scouting, wasn't able to find it. Although a Marine was left. Brilliant play. I didn't realize that. A single Marine remained at bottom right. Hydralisks now being produced. From Hero, he's going to need Lurker Tech, which is mostly upgraded, Evolution Chamber, and a Tech to Hive. Tech to Hive off 2 bases here. That was very optimistic, especially considering, wow, this is going to be an interesting play, because now It's a huge map control race as Royal has two big, beefy medic marine armies moving out. Two lurkers morphing bottom right. So will the lurkers and Mutalisk be sufficient to stop Royal from taking out that base bottom right? Overlord getting chewed away at mid-map. More Zerglings being produced to try to engage this medic marine force. But honestly, as long as... Oh, nice little abuse over that cliffside edge. Mid-map, a bunch of Zerglings have been added to Hero's attack force, eating some damage right there. You can see where Hero threatening with that to try to establish... Yeah, backing. Royal doesn't like what he sees. Feels like that might be a little bit too much. So that bottom right hatchery is going to come online. Or be morphed or constructed. Evolved. I'm not sure if what I want. Infested? It's kind of... interesting discussion. Someone brought this up in the background of like, okay, what do you call... Because it's not exactly building per se, right? With Zerg. So would you say morph? Would you say... Anyway, it's an interesting line of thought that I appreciate. Double starport actually going for dropship. I love this play from Royal because Hero is going to be so challenged worrying about map control to defend this bottom right-hand base that a lot of the units are going to be potentially out of position to deal with the drop at the main. And there's a lot of tech. Ooh, huge medic pick off there by Hero mid-map. The dropship's trying to move... Now, will the dropships actually be able to scoop up units and remain out of vision is the next question. They do... Oh, man, going straight through the middle there. And I don't think Hero saw it. He used the medic marines to create a wedge in the vision lines, and the troops are just going to go bottom right before that Nidus Canal potentially comes online. I think Hero might have spotted it with that Overlord. All of the units darting out of position. The Lurkers going to try to plant to engage those lines, but a few medic marines being left. Comsat, one Lurker down. Second Lurker's been picked off. The Nidus Canal is up. The dropships exiting. The medic marines dealing with more Lurkers have managed to get here. It's going to be a race to the ramp as the rest of the medic marines are making their way this direction. And now Royal in a bit of trouble here because Hero actually has a decent drone count behind this, has established his third gas. The dropship, I almost wanted to see dropship play move to the main while the medic marines preoccupied the attack force at other locations. Instead, going to bottom right to engage. Second evolution chamber coming online. Defiler mound is there, but we don't have any defilers in position as of yet. But going up a ramp against lurkers is a huge task for any attack force. +1 armor is there, by the way. Science vessels starting to fill in. 6 barracks being added on. A single marine sitting at the natural expansion just to keep an eye on troops. And Royal grabbing his third expansion. Do we have a second? Looking to see whether we see a second engineering bay yet or not. Now Royal going into containment mode, so dropping some troops bottom right, moving the rest of these troops towards that natural expansion of Hero to potentially set up the follow-up irradiates, but with the Defiler already out on the map and science vessels not yet in position, it's going to require something. Oh, look at this. Royal going for double expand behind this. Off the contain, potentially recognizing he wasn't going to be able to just go for irradiate harassment undeterred. So wanting to bolster his economy to be able to keep pace with Hero. From this stage on, it looks like Hero going to drop a plague bottom right. Not getting much out of it. Does hit 2 of the medics, however. And then going to walk his way down to go ahead and seal that natural expansion. More medic marines and some science vessels. 4 science vessels making their way this direction to make it more troublesome to establish that natural expansion. We do have a marine that's able to attack that hatchery. Keep in mind, Darkstorm does not protect buildings. Zergling's going to clear out the weakened forces otherwise. So Royal now trying to establish those lines, get the 2. It looks like that third already online has a bunker just in case some units snuck out on the map. Another grouping of units just in case something snuck out on the map. Maybe to defend against Mutalisks that are still latently here. Both players grouping up. Royal with a 30 supply lead. A massive worker lead. Carapace upgrades, I believe, are matching for the moment. Let's see if I can actually select a single medic marine. Actually, never mind. Still an upgrade lead overall for Royal. Firebats joining the grouping to punch through that Dark Swarm at the bottom right. Wants to make sure that fourth base doesn't get online and Hero can't work with that fourth gas to sail into the late game. Lurker's obliterating a little bit of attack trooping. I almost feel like Royal was pushing that in just to test what he's up against here bottom right. But I do believe with these fire bats, once there are insufficient lurkers out on the front, there is going to be a push to clear out that natural expansion. I think Hero recognizes it, has a lot of Zerglings making their way through the Nidus Canals. Actually, double Nidus Canal? Is there a Nidus Canal? Looks like another Nidus Canal being dropped natural expansion. I love that Royal also is leaving some bait troops to absorb initial plagues so that he doesn't end up with massive amount of units plagues. The fire bats have been seen, which should be a big red flag to Hero bottom right. He's actually testing the front, looking at the troop composition, re-engaging under Dark Swarm. Fire bats are able to clear those Zerglings, but a Science Vessel gets picked out of the sky in turn. Kind of like Royal's position still, though. He's sitting on those 4 bases. This third gas is just now coming online. Irradiates are being dropped one after another, bottom right. So even though that fourth gas has been established by Hero, he's able to get a drop in the natural, or in the main, in the bottom right, clearing out everything right here. Beautiful drop. Caught me off guard as well, and Firebats rapidly clearing the drone line. They don't care about Dark Swarm. Also, the Marines still outside of the Dark Swarm. Drone count plummeting. Gas disrupted. More attacks at the natural expansion. And Hero down to nearly half the supply of Royal. Defiler trying to chase out and get a... Oh, this could be a massive plague. That is a lot of... Oh, goodness. Huge plague. Some Zerglings are going to be able to sneak through. It looks like there is a bunker being constructed to deal with this. Hero does need to start moving out on the map to stay relevant, especially after that drop did so much damage bottom right. Otherwise, Royal is going to hit 200 supply. And just... He's going to be... It looks actually he's just going to grab yet another expansion. He can do so. Hero in a desperate situation now. Yes, there was that massive plague, but all of that's rebuildable. He still has a foothold of control outside of the natural. He's been pressing this bottom right for ever since the mid game. Has a bunker you can rely on for additional bases. Battle cruisers now being fielded. We do have some Mutalisks making their way out, maybe to engage them. I think they were hoping to spot dropships, not these big beefy guys. The troops that were outside the natural expansion being cleared out as those Mutalisks are engaging. Firebats starting to push in towards that bottom right. Level 3 weapons is online. The Zerglings absolutely getting obliterated. Ultralisks finally taking the field. They do have that +4 carapace. Doesn't look like their speed upgraded yet. A couple of the Ultralisks sneaking out, recognizing they need to get some additional damage done. A drop behind the battle cruisers, pushing in at the main, and there is a lot of soft tech. Still some drones to be killed. Zerglings trying to push their way across to cope with this. The gas is down, which is a big hit. The Mutalisks being wiped out. Otherwise, counterattack as well in the form of a lot of irradiates. Double, just constant attacks all over the map from Royal. Two-pronged attack. This is the play you expect from an ASL champion right here. The Ultralisks trying to find something. We're making their way towards the third, running into troops and also some reinforcements. Let's see if the battle cruisers clean that up. Hatcheries down bottom right. Hero in trouble. Medic plus defense matrix making that Firebat an absolute god. 18, 20 kills before he's taken out. Like the Greek heroes of old right there. Battlecruisers trying to clean up, so a little bit of annoyance here at the third. Royal could honestly transfer these SCVs out. It looks like he's opting not to because he's going to end the game right here. The Medic Marines breaching the top right. The Nidus Canal still up. There is an Ultralist nearby, but that single Ultra going up against a lot of Marines. So quickly melted. Everything has been wiped out. We have 31 drones now just spread between the natural and the main as more science vessels are moving that direction, potentially to go for an eraser trick or just irradiate everything, open up that front. This is over. Hero once again showing... ooh, gas down here. Yeah, there's GG. So, in game 2 on a heads-up map, Royal showing why he is the champion and why he beat so many Zerg players on his way through. Incredible. And that was without fielding... This is the thing you also have to keep in mind. This is without fielding the newer meta builds that involve Valkyrie and whatnot. That was with straight builds from, I don't want to say the prior era, but the previous season before all of the Valkyrie meta really became a thing. And so that's still an option, I assume, in Royal's belt. We're going to move on to Odyssey next. Royal starting in the upper right hand corner as the red Terran bottom left. We have Hero as the purple Zerg. Odyssey, an interesting map where you have that protected rear natural expansion. Natural at standard natural otherwise, but you do have 2 gas in the main, split between 4,000 and 1,000. So you still have 5,000 gas, it's just split between 2 bases. I haven't seen Zerg really utilize that to go for any sort of early game gas anything. You mine the gas more rapidly when you grab both assimilators, but with only 1,000 minerals, with only 1,000 gas, it expended a little bit more rapidly, so there still is pressure on Zerg to be able to get additional expansions. Mutalisk play can be absolutely huge. That does make it a little bit easier to defend that rear expansion for Zerg than it does for Terran. This actually might be one of those maps to do the Valkyrie style thing. Additionally, the might be a good map for mech play to clear those Xel'Naga temples rapidly to breach into that usually easily defendable rear base. If anyone can come up with some sort of creative negation of the typical advantages for Zerg potentially on this map, I would say it is Royal. Drone trick to give the 10 drones with the spawning pool, so I'm assuming that means we're going to see a dedication of the 6 Zerglings early for Hero after Overlord. 9 pool opener for him. However, Royal already sealing his front. Looking for a front door seal potentially to grab a quick natural expansion. SCV Scout making its way out. Overlord is going to see it as it's coming its way across. Initial 6 Zerglings and a natural expansion being grabbed before gas. So no Zergling speed. It is possible that Hero also just wants to make sure that he gets 6 Zerglings out on the field to negate initial scouting. However, that SCV is going to be able to come up and see the morph timing of that extractor. Zerglings initially, so there's still the gap to the top that can be blocked by SCV. Marine grouping up to engage the 6 Zerglings that have been spotted making their way across. The SCV checking that rear, actually just going to hide, I think. I think this is more to protect the SCV against the Zerglings initially than it is the other way around. SCVs to the north blocking that top gap, a very wide base to try to defend. SCV in position to go ahead and grab that natural. Very fast natural expansion grab. And that's actually another bonus of having this SCV back here, or this area back here, I would say, for opponents, is as long as they stay in between the mineral fields, they can get a later delayed scout, unless the Zerglings just, in this instance, Zerglings just camp out here to prevent it. But the layer timing has been spotted. Also the lack of second gas grab. So I guess that is also a factor with that second gas, is how do you deny with this base that you can filter in SCVs on timing. You see the Zerglings just have to sit on this side of the ramp now and wait and hope. Actually, a drone being sent through from Hero, maybe to attack that. So the SCV not safe. You thought you were safe, just kidding. Trying to retreat, taking damage, so it's going to get wiped out. That'll be a lack of scouting information, maybe open something up. Either that natural expansion take, or at least that frees up the Zerglings to start moving out on the map. So Royal now in the dark, as is natural expansion. coming online. He does have that second barracks. Looks like it's going to be 2 racks Academy play. I feel like this has become the staple for Terran. It is possible we'll see that Valkyrie build played. Time will tell. All of that. I'm not sure if it's just because there's been tutorials created by Light, who the head admiral of the Terran army these days, creating all of the meta. The guy who's establishing the meta. It looks like the drone clearing out that cannon, by the way, to maybe grab that protect third spire in construction. Or if it's just, yeah, this is just a better, more flexible way of play. But 2 racks play has become a big factor for Terran across the board. Zerglings spreading across, making sure they are catching additional scouting information now, holding up. I think they want to get a look at whether that's a medic or not. Yeah, peeking forward, seeing that's a medic. They also have revealed that there's Zergling speed, however, with their movements. The Marines just trying to push that back. Medic Marines currently holding up for Royal. The Zerglings threatening a backstab. Overlord a little bit too far forward, though. Needs to be careful, otherwise Royal might be able to get a quick Overlord kill. This is going to force 2 creep colonies to be plopped down. The Zerglings seeing if the... Ooh, actually might be able to get the medic on the rear. So doing an attack of damage there. Royal marching his way across to force those sunken colonies. The medics a little bit exposed, though, on that trail. The Zerglings trying to tack away at it and maybe get a quick kill. And that would be a huge pickup. Not quite able to do so. Actually, only a single sunken colony drop from Hero. The Zerglings on surround. So I think this is going to be sufficient to go ahead and defend it. Nice Zergling movement there. 2 Firebats joining. I missed that actually on the follow-up. The Firebats moving across with Hero. If they had been there in time, that might have been sufficient to breach the front. However, Hero with the solid defense. Mutalisks now wiping out the Medic Marines, and the Firebat's going to hold the ramp with the Medics just to keep those Zerglings back and buy some time to refill the troop count on the front. Maybe get those turrets established as well. 2 turrets in the natural expansion as well. The Firebats taking forever to kill, but losing that attack force early does give Hero a lot of comfort. He should be able to pump drones without too much trouble, and that is going to put Royal very much on the defensive. 2 turrets established, 3rd barracks online, turrets in the back of the base, so Royal's going to have to hold up a bit. Just really respecting the Mutalisk harassment of Hero. You can see the 3 turrets centered around all of that base. 2 turrets to protect the barracks line so he doesn't end up just getting wiped out along those regards. Factory being constructed here at the 7-minute mark to get those science vessels out in play. Medic Marines maybe wanting to make some movements, but the Zerglings using that opportunity to just go ahead and make their way in, check what the turret count is at the natural. 4 turrets along that line, and this is a big investment. Hero getting that 3rd base up without too much trouble, really. And you can see is that drone count starting to rise. Evolution Chamber getting that +1 weapons. Hydralisk Den also establishing, and a tech to hive, because this is going to be free 3 gas. Now I'm wondering if it is going to be a dropship follow-up, or since you do have this more challenging to defend rear expansion that's behind that barricade, dropships could be a strong play there, or if we're just going to see the movement to science vessel double starport being dropped. +1 weapons almost finished. Did we see +1 weapons on the... Yeah, +1 weapons is being upgraded for the Mutalisks. Not sure that it was necessary, but it has been something that Zerg have been doing at large. Actually surprised to see that with only the 6 Mutalisk count. I'm wondering if that does indicate we're going to see Hero grow that count to 9. To maybe pin back those Medic Marines so they have to be a little bit more wary of turret pickoffs. The Mutalisks at the moment just trying to spot that army and its movements. Factory floated off. Additional barracks being added on to bring the count up to, I believe, no, that's one that's been floated back to bring the count up to 5. Want to take a look whether we do see, I think this might be dropship play because I don't see these. Never mind, there's the science facility. Medic Marine Force has managed to get out towards the north. It looks like we do see more Mutalisks. But with this threat out in Hero's territory, that is going to keep the Mutalisks away from the main. Keep in mind, they do have +1 weapons, so it's kind of now it's going to be micro versus micro opportunities. Royal continuing to press forward, very aggressively so. Single Marine blockading the right. That Overlord, very exposed. I don't think those mules, yeah, not sufficient to save it. Nice pick off. Medic gets wiped out. Hero with just the scalpel attack. He's got to feel fairly comfortable with these 3 Sutton colonies here. +1 Carapace going to finish. Nidus Canal being built to create that space, and it is going to be Science Vessel play rather than dropship play. Now keep in mind, Eraser Trick could still be a threat in the back rear. Royal actually already just straight up pressed up the natural expansion. Lurkers burrowed. Mutalisks have made their way out, checking that rear third to make sure that it has not yet been grabbed. And this is the challenging part for Terran. Irradiate being researched, where you can't really grab this base because of that Mutalisk threat. Because you cannot get troops to move out and to defend. And especially with the 9 Mutalisks with +1, that's actually another reason for +1 on this map, is that Mutalisks can rapidly take down those missile turrets. Zergling spotting the reinforcement line. Royal just checking additional expansions. I always love it when Terran players do this, where they just make sure that additional bases spend the 50 minerals instead of expending your comsats. Scourge trying to find science vessels, not finding anything, however. As a bit of an engagement, Overlord being picked off. That is putting Hero in the red. His worker count's still very solid. He still has that 3 gas. Greater Spire actually morphed. Bit of a surprise. If those Mules can make their way back, this would be a great location to morph some Guardians. A Defiler attack force escaping to the north. The Science Vessel's trying to trail it. Managing to gotten irradiate on that Defiler that's going to send the rest of these troops back home. And Guardian's actually going to morph in the third to be more of a defensive play here from Hero and deal with the Medic Marines on the high ground. Takes a long time for there to be sufficient energy to irradiate all of those Guardians down. So that will, depending on Royal's positioning, that at the very least negates any sort of attempted attack on that temple line. More Medic Marines balling up, so it looks like Royal's play from here. Grab that third at the 3 o'clock location, maybe grab 1 additional expansion and try to limit Hero to 3 bases, which is a lot to need to do. Lurkers maybe on hold position out there. Where'd the Guardians go? Yeah, Guardians hanging out over that cliffside edge. Worker count even. The Scourge looking to see if they can find a Science Vessel. Radiate's initially being dropped. Additional Comsat as well. More Lurkers being morphed. Hero wanting to sneak out on the map. Maybe going to wait for some additional upgrades before he opts to get aggressive. Carapace and level 1 Spines being researched. Now these 3 Mutalisks could be very, very dangerous, especially if they're not spotted. Make all the way up here and morph, as that could be a big backstab opportunity. I'm wondering if other Mutalisks also manage to get into this pocket. They could be very, very dangerous there as well. So into the north, are they just going to dive in and scout? Are they going to hold back and morph? So pulling back, hanging out over that third base. We'll try to keep an eye on them. Science Vessel count fairly high. We do have enough irradiates to deal with this, it looks like, but that the Guardians revealing themselves to the 9 o'clock location. So going to wipe that out. The Science Vessel's moving in position to deal with that. I'm wondering if Hero's also just going to leave these in position to see if there's an overcommit from Royal out on the map, morph them, or an over-irradiate at some location, maybe deal with it there. Medic Marines getting obliterated, nothing but their blood left here at the interior 6. Lurker, and it looks like they weren't able to burrow to hit those lines. Gonna run into some siege tanks and Medic Marines along that right-hand side. That's gonna repel, send this attack. I think Hero's going to push this back to, yeah, Hydralisk Defiler Plague in the late game with a little bit of Guardian mixed in, just to make it spicy. So Plague drop, that just, yeah, very, very efficient for Zerg. Siege Tanks to help at that 3 o'clock. Siege Tanks do tend to be the answer to this late game, and the consistent irradiate on the Defilers per usual. Lurkers grouping up on that high ground spoke. With that Defiler gone, let's see if Royal presses this attack, dropping an irradiate on that Lurker. Because Medic Marine do trade fairly efficiently when the Defiler support isn't there. 9 o'clock base being dropped, a bunch of Defilers being irradiated. Noodle is still remaining silent there at the 12 o'clock. We do have the Guardians sneaking out, clearing out the Marine to the south, and might even go for an all end around. Those Siege Tanks are somewhat exposed. Firebats trying to cut off reinforcements between point A and point B. Getting absorbed, able to wipe out a Lurker, a couple Medic Marines. The Hydralisk is going to sweep through and deal with the rest of that attack force. I don't know if that was efficient for Royal or not. Science Vessel getting picked off to the north in exchange for a Defiler, which isn't the exchange Royal was looking for. Needs to keep that Science Vessel count high. Plague lands on a handful of those Marines. SCV is scouting that bottom right, and this is where these Defilers could scoop in and really end up being a sizable problem. Needle is still holding. It looks like they just want to go ahead and hold and deny that base for the time being, but Hero in a very comfortable position. Doesn't have the supply lead yet, but is climbing that direction. He's got solid upgrades. Royal is just now getting his 4th base up online. He's going to be able to establish his 4th base and might even be able to stop one of Royal's expansions here before it's even established, especially as that Guardian, single Guardian moving in. That should be taken care of by those Medic Marines. Actually, it looks like both Guardians were wiped out there, but they were able to stop that SCV from constructing, so that's going to delay that 3rd. Counterattack now from Royal at the 9 o'clock. Lurkers still morphing, not yet planted at the high ground. Royal trying to push in. Hydralisks using that misfire rate, and they don't have Defiler support, so actually this might be a dead 9 o'clock location. Lurkers are all that's on point. Hero rushing up reinforcements. It looks like Hero is going to have the reinforcements in time. Science Vessel's trying to sweep in, but it's insufficient, and a counterattack as well from Royal into the natural expansion. And now, oof, this is devastating, especially if Lurkers manage to sneak forward. Once you get Lurkers around this ramp, that can oftentimes be game ending. In fact, this is looking game ending to me right here. So Hero finding Royal overstepping at the 9 o'clock, able to not just defend that. Oh, I missed that Lurkers already managed to sweep up here. So while I was looking at the 9 o'clock, I was missing all of the attack here, but oof, everything breaching. Hero now has the supply lead. There's GG. So on Odyssey, the win goes to Hero. And actually, I reversed that because that on Vermeer, we had the win, my bad, to Royal. This win to Hero. I think I did that same thing in the previous team battle. Apologies to everybody out there. Although I will say Odyssey is one of those odd maps. I do think it is Zerg favored. And so it's not all that unexpected that Hero is able to take the win there. At the very least, in this best of 7, he knows he's not getting aced across the board. However, we are going to move on to Neil Sylphid. One of those more standard maps, 12 o'clock location. We have Royal starting as the Teal Zerg, bottom right hand corner. We have Hero starting as, or sorry, let me try that again. 12 o'clock location, Royal as the Teal Terran, not Zerg. Bottom right hand corner, we have Hero starting as the Red Zerg. Neil Sylphid being one of those more heads-up maps. I don't like Hero's odds on it. I will say, from the play I've seen thus far, Odyssey notwithstanding, Royal still looks like he is the dominant player, and he looks like an ASL champion, which is got to be particularly scary for all of the other Zerg players out there, especially, again, with that Valkyrie meta that is still lurking. It's almost like that heebie-jeebie shadow figure that's... It's got to be frustrating knowing, and there's actually, I think somewhere I saw some stats and they're talking about win rates in spawn matches and across the ladder, and Terran had somehow surged with this recent Valkyrie meta up to something like 65% win rate, which is considerable. Overlord first build here from Hero. We'll see if he drops the spawning pool to follow. But yeah, it's got to be frustrating knowing that even going for the old methodology, you can't. It's a hard fought everything. You just end up falling to Royal's sharp level of play, his decision making, his micro, everything. And yet, there's also the option of the even harder to stop off meta builds. Royal with the barracks towards the front, sending out his scouting SCV. Looks like it was a 12th hatch opposite corner. This is a rampless map, which can make it challenging for Zerg players to establish third bases, as you can't just rely on lurkers holding up on top of ramps. I'm curious if that is going to provoke more Mutalisk heavy play from Hero, or maybe even the 2.5 hatch. Once again, we saw that being dispatched fairly mechanically by Royal game 1. Still haven't made any royalty puns. The King of Terran. Maybe what I should say currently. Emperor of Terran. Emperor's not exactly royalty, is it? Wonder what that distinction is. Anyway, third drone is being sent out. Or sorry, drone being sent out to scout. Right there. SCV hanging out in the meantime. Has got the gas timing. Making sure that kind of spotting to see whether Zerglings are being produced. Royal moving out to greet that drone to deny information. It looks like he wants to go 1 racks into expand upon seeing that 12th hatchery, and is going to be able to do so. Actually, is he going to press with these Marines? So initial damage done. The drone making its way back. The Overlord kind of making its way out this direction, and the Marines actually coming off the field. With this SCV, it could be trouble, especially as no Zerglings have been constructed. We have a pair of Zerglings that have been evolved, morphed. And yeah, now we have the drone and the Marines harassing. With a bit of micro, they should be able to deal with these Zerglings no problem. And this is going to force initial Zerglings to be queued, which is going to hurt Hero's early game economy. Drones being disrupted out of that natural. 3 Marines and a 4th Marine grouping up. Repositioning, and some Zerglings getting wiped out as well. And that's going to force even more Zerglings out here early. So a creep colony being dropped, and Royal might end this early. Early. Drones dying. Huge lead thus far. Creep colony has been forced. More Zerglings getting expended. The drones finally getting surrounded on the Marines, but they're going to lose their lives for it. And this is all while that natural expansion being grabbed and getting more drone kills. Wow. What a masterful early game harass by Royal. So that was all for just 4 Marines. Bunker being constructed at the natural. Hero trying to run up. Another SCV scout being sent out. Lair is up. Spire is being completed, but an abysmal 11 drone count left for Hero at the end. SCVs creating that seal blockade. This SCV going to have to make its way back to the main. Speed also has been shown with those Zerglings. So Royal should have a pretty good idea. I mean, he's got to know that Hero is in a desperate situation here. And this is on one of those maps where, it's up to Hero to do something miraculous. And he's, after all of those initial drones being bled off, I don't even know that he's going to be able to stop the follow-up just medic Marine push off the 2 barracks with the Academy and +1 weapons, although it's going to be 4 Marines shy. Engineering bay being dropped. Royal doesn't even need to do that, and he already knows that there's a damaged Sunken colony out on the front. Looks like he is just going to move forward, and the Zerglings on hold position, one of them losing their lives for it. So we're going to need, and here's the thing is with all of those initial drone damages, it looks like it's going to be 3 Mutalisks constructed initially rather than the usual 5 or 4 even. It's still going to be close to the 6-minute mark, but it's going to be a very stymied attack, which means less turrets are going to be needed. The medic Marine count might be able to grow sufficiently, especially with range probably finishing before Those Mulisks are going to be in sizable numbers. It snowballs from here. And Royal might even be able to push in. It looks like he is still going to drop turrets just to respect that micro. More Mules making the way across. It's got to come down to just +1 weapons also being researched. It's going to come down to just pure Mutalisk micro here from Hero. He's got to win it just by being a bully with his Mutalisks. And he's got to do it with fewer Mutalisks than usual as well. Quite a tall order. Finally has the 5 Mutalisk count now. Royal maybe even just waiting. The other thing is he needs to do it and preserve a lot of this Mutalisk health, because if too much Mutalisk health is expended, Royal can just walk on to that natural expansion and clear Hero out of the game. Trying to engage that Medic Marine army. It looks like he's not pressing towards that, pressing anyplace else. Still hasn't moved out. Yeah, I think it's just going to be pure Mutalisk, 2-hatch Mutalisk. So now we're going to see how 2-hatch Mutalisk works for Hero versus a player, literally the best player in the world at the moment. 10 Mutalisk count growing. Mirroring those attacks. Now moving up. Taking a bit of damage right there. Yeah, it's just going to be pure 2-hatch Muta. The only way for Hero potentially to win this match. I think once Royal spots it, let's see if he, opts for more turrets. 1 turret getting picked off. 9 Mules can 2-shot these turrets, especially with +1 weapons, which isn't that far away from finishing. Another good pick off from Hero, though he has 1 Mule that's heavily damaged. Royal backing up, tacking on extra turrets at that natural expansion. I think he recognizes the situation as well. One thing is this just shows you, still going to take down a supply depot, how threatening a Zerg truly can be. Armory this time with, so now, potentially Valkyrie is going to be fielded rather than Science Vessels. Science Vessels would be a hard shutdown. Valkyrie's sufficient to shut this down as well. Mutalisks grouping out towards the right. Second grouping of Mutalisks out there. Do we see a drone? No, I still think this is just going to be 3 bases, additional creep colony being planted. Mutalisks able to get to that natural, pick off one of the turrets, group repair on the additional turret. Marines having trouble getting in there. Some SCVs are bleeding out. Royal still sitting at 40 SCVs overall, though. Thinning the herd. Initial Valkyries being built to shut this down. So now we're seeing, it's kind of interesting because the Mutalisks seeing now the double starport and also spotting that armory. Looks like they're going to try to hang out because they want to try to engage the Valkyries while they're in smaller numbers as they're spawning. The Medic Marines balled up between point A and point B. That starport under fire. The Medic Marines still remaining in position. Maybe recognizing he doesn't want to overly risk, and that splash damage across, the Mutalisk just getting obliterated. That will be GG. That's it. No third base as of yet. We do have some more Mutalisks out in play. Tech to high from Hero. Hydrosten off 2 bases. But Royal in firm control all the way around. More Mutalisks making their way out. An Overlord getting picked off in open field, just making a bad situation worse. Kind of a late defensive effort here. We do see some Hydralisks out. Zerglings shooting the gap. Gonna get picked off otherwise. And Royal can either just camp here. Ooh, a lot of lurkers grouping up. Royal just buying himself some time right now. But Royal can expand all he wants. He can grow the Mutalisk count. Oh, he's gonna dive right now before those Mutalisks are ready. One something colony down. This might actually work. Let's see. I mean, he can afford to lose the troops is the other aspect of it. Mutalisk gone. Some lurkers comsatted, so 3 of them dying nigh instantly. 2 are going to remain. That's going to back the rest of the troops off as the Valkyrie count continues to grow, which I assume it's going to continue to grow. Nope, Science Vessels have been swapped out. More lurkers dying. Looks like those Medic Marines are going to be cleared off the front. But this is still 18 workers for Hero, 42 for Royal. A 40 supply lead for Royal. Now moving out of Siege Tank. Yeah, you're going to GG right there. And so, again, on the more typical maps that aren't heavily Zerg favored, shows you Royal is just an absolute killer. One thing that was noted is how strong Royal was versus Zerg in particular. It was just obliterating Zerg on his run. And this is continuing to prove to be true. And the thing, arguably, I mean, Hero went the deepest in this last ASL. So I think at the moment you do have to consider him the strongest Zerg. And this just shows you, even against the strongest of Zergs, how fragile they are in the face of Royal's amazing play. Upper right hand corner, Hero starting as the brown Zerg. Bottom right hand corner, we have Royal as the blue Terran. Royal only dropping a match thus far on Odyssey. And just showing why he is the ASL champion. And I'm presuming at this stage, we'll see who stays and watches from this point on. I think at this stage, after you've seen everything Royal can do. Oh, is he going to go for a quick cheese? We got an SCV breaking off the line immediately. It looks like we're going to see an 8 racks. Might as well. It's also possible this is just going to be a single forward racks to pressure his opponent, and also considering how successful that was last map, it'll be a question of what Hero opts to do now. Is he going to build the initial Overlord? Yeah, Overlord first, so at the very least, maybe an Overpool. Odd position, actually, for the first barracks. No second SCV being sent. We'll see if he constructs a second barracks on site, or if it's just, again, just going to be the single racks pressure. He is going for an Overpool build, so potentially he's going to have Zerglings to defend this. This is much harder to defend with a 12 hatch. And kind of with the odd building, this actually might be an opportunity for Hero to notch another win. Supply depot being built to create a bit of a barrier on the front. And actually with the barracks out of position, this could also delay, with initial Zergling pressure, could potentially delay the ability to grab a natural expansion down the line for Royal. Hero grabbing that naturally out, just a single barracks pressure. Is that SCV returning to do scouting information? See what he's running into. Spotting the lower gestation. Should recognize that he's got a pool opener before hatchery. Sees the gas timing. 4 Zergling have been queued thus far. SCV, 3 SCV and gas, so this could be a factory follow-up. So we could see some sort of 1-1-1 adjusted play. The Marines are holding up top left. Zerglings starting to make their way out. Currently, Royal's going to have to seal his front door with something. Building a factory. The Zerglings somehow recognize something's amiss, so moving to the upper left, the barracks lifting off. The Zerglings missing the Marines, now finding the Marines. Oh, and this could be a big loss early. Whenever you lose one of your initial overlords, oh, in the red. Bunker being constructed, and the Zerglings out of position to help fight this off. It finishes. All 4 Marines, actually, sorry, 1 Marine gets taken out on the exterior. And additional troubles, that factory nearly finished at the rear, but that natural expansion completely exposed. Hero in the red, so he can't even build additional troops. Building a Hydralisk den, so he's going to have to resort potentially to 1 base. Hydralisk play. SCV spots the Hydralisk den. As far as a follow-up, 9 drones remaining. Everything working for Hero. Going to go with a starport follow-up. So we are seeing 1-1-1. Machine shop. Potentially siege tanks to follow this up. The Zerglings should be able to clear out that bunker and save the hatchery. as Marines no longer there defending. Might be able to run down, and let's see how much damage they can wreak here between the main and the naturals. That this still isn't sealed. Machine shot being canceled as that bunker being wiped out, and vultures being constructed to help defend. Royal still hasn't grabbed his natural expansion. Still has that 5 worker lead. Lair being morphed. Still building a Wraith despite seeing the Hydralisk Den. Interestingly enough, maybe he wants to make sure that he pins his opponent in a defensive position, or maybe wants to just get some free overlords on his side of the map. Initial vulture making its way across, bunker being constructed at the natural expansion. Where's the barracks? The barracks needing to build Marines on an off position and walk them there. Vulture's trying to scout out, see what they can, but yeah, still a advantageous situation for Royal overall. But things slowing down a little bit. Spire being built. The vultures haven't tested the front. There's only a Hydralisk there, no Sunken Colony to help defend. So insufficient numbers, they can overwhelm. And on top of that, with the Wraith, as far as a follow-up, drawing that Hydralisk potentially to the main, that is going to open up an opportunity for the vultures to kind of go wherever they want. So yeah, now engaging, going to rapidly wipe out that Hydralisk. The Zergling's exposed. Second Hydralisk moving up. This is still, yeah, sufficient enough with some micro. That Hydralisk gets picked off. The Overlord's going to be free reign. The Wraith just dies. That was a huge pick off, because otherwise that would have been additional dead Overlords, but the Vultures still remain. As additional Hydralisks are taking the field, it takes a while to kill them, even with the Hydralisks. So the drones having to pull off the line to defend themselves. One drone dead. This has still actually been a solid defense from Hero, but it's still been a losing defense. Well behind where he would want to be otherwise. Although with the modified 1-1-1, this is kind of throwing off Royal's side of the equation as well. Still has a 10 worker lead, has done all sorts of damage to start. Getting Cloaked Wraith. As far as the follow-up, wanting to play it more creative. Overlord checking additional bases, making sure that they haven't been grabbed. The Hydralisk count starting to grow. One trick without siege tanks out is there might be an opportunity for Royal with the Hydralisks and the Mutalisks to just swarm Royal. Additional Wraith going to get yet another Overlord kill here. Vulture wandering forward. Very nearly losing its life. The Mutalisk starting to press forward. Turrets being constructed to help defend. Hero again in the red with that last Overlord death. And the Vulture wanting to remain active to, yeah, keep those Mutalisks preoccupied rather than having them be freed to be aggressive. So the Vulture gone. Now the Wraith gonna have some trouble because it's challenging to trade, but keep in mind Cloak was finished earlier, which means for a period of time they're going to be able to pick Mutalisks out of the sky undeterred. But with that solid split, it is up to Royal to preserve that energy. 15 worker count. Second gas is up and running for Hero. He's certainly in a difficult situation, but not out of this game as of yet. SCV moving up to scout, I think, to see the composition here. Gonna run headlong into a group of Hydralisks. Maybe wants to check the third as well. Another Overlord gonna get picked off by the 3 Wraith in open field. There is a Scourge, pair of Scourge. Never mind, he's just gonna go straight to the main. Cloak up. Needs to be very careful to stay out of vision, however. The drone's exposed. There is an Overlord in that right-hand corner. But one Wraith, very, very low on energy. So potentially going to get picked off near instantly. Not able to get any drone kills, so that is going to be one dead Wraith. The rest of the Wraith trying to do what they can. Overlord opening up vision, so one Wraith down. The second one heavily damaged. Looks like now it is going to be Cloaked. Scourge chasing down that witch. That which remains, which makes it sound, because of Marble, more epic than it is, but it's just the last surviving unit. Not a lot of anti-air now for Royal. He's having to defend up. He does have that Science Vessel in place. Working on a Radiate to negate that potential Mutalisk threat, but we have some Lurkers, some Zerglings maybe to go for a shot and test this front. In anticipation, a third bunker being constructed. However, the Lurkers are there. SCV's pulling off the line to try to back them off. The SCV's getting wiped out near immediately. Not a lot of detection here as well. And so Hero with the counterattack, able to breach the natural, now moving in. Lurkers able to get in the gap. A siege tank is out. SCV's losing their lives, and Hero right back in this match and in a potential position to finish it here. Science Vessel able to provide detection for both the Wraith and the siege tank. Going to clear it out. More Zerglings following up. Royal smells blood in the water, wants to end it here. Siege tank needs to survive, surrounded by Zerglings currently. The Wraith still working on that Lurker. I think this is going to be close. More Zerglings flooding across to try to finish it off. Another siege tank out. Wraith trying to do what it can over air. Another Science Vessel in construction, but the SCV are going to have to defend themselves for the time being. Marines being produced as well. SCV's solidly defending there, wiping out a lot of the troops, but the worker count actually even. As more Zerglings, some Scourge now moving forward. Going to go after that Science Vessel. So Royal having some trouble adjusting back to a standard style of play, and now we have a match. As Mutalisks grouping out, worker counts even, supply counts even. Various buildings burning. For Hero, he needs to get on top of that actually and make sure he gets that supply depot. Otherwise, he's gonna... That's free resources lost. Trying to get what he can with that Overlord out in the forward position. A Vulture sneaking by, wanting to maybe either distract the Mutalisks. Ooh, Wraith is picked off. With that Science Vessel being taken out earlier, not a lot of anti-air. One Irradiate on top of the Mutalisks that are on top of the Marines, unfortunately, and that's clever play. Running the Mutalisk into the Marines with that Irradiate. SCV's not able to get sufficient anti-air up, and there's just not enough mass on the ground now. Hero moving up Mutalisks, and if he just produces raw Mutalisks, might be able to end this. The Vulture is moving to the natural expansion, emptying the drone line there. The Mutalisks not sufficient, so it's going to come down to some sort of odd base race situation. I think Hero has the better hand of it, though. Yeah, Royal going to GG. So, after a chaotic one that was very atypical, and honestly, honestly a little bit of Royal showboating, Hero able to take a win on Butter. Now we're going to move on to another semi-odd map in Nemesis. And Nemesis, keep in mind, is completely flat open land absolutely everywhere. But it does have opportunities for odd play. You've got backstab opportunities. I'll actually reveal the map and cover it as soon as I'm into game here. Go ahead and hop into it. Bottom left-hand corner, we have Royal as the white Terran. Bottom right-hand corner, we have Hero as the teal Zerg. Nemesis. The critical bits are you've got that... let's drop that. You've got the natural expansion. Everything... So even though this looks like a ramp, it's actually flat ground. Everything is exactly on the same plane here. You've got the lurker eggs protecting... a gap between these assimilators. You take one assimilator down, only small units can get through. If you take both assimilators down, I believe only ghosts can make it through, so that is a way to protect additional territory, but you can kind of move through, take down assimilators, grab additional bases here, as you do have a 3,000 Vespene Geyser in place and some mineral fields at split location in no man's land. Overlord making its way bottom left, by the way, to get first scout for Hero. So kind of another one of those maps that's a little bit more creative. Hero did take the match on Odyssey, although I feel like Odyssey is much more Zerg favored because of that protected natural expansion where Mutalisks are able to deny it, but there's not a lot of denial options for a Terran in comparison. Spawning pool being constructed post Overlord. And you can see the kind of... Is that actually kind of a interesting building placement here as you got... So this is the natural. You can see he's almost building it, one, to do the over blockade on the natural, but you also, a little latently, you need to think about attacks that can come down the ramp. So I'm almost wondering if we're going to see some additional building placement along that edge to deal with any follow-up attacks. Lurkers can be interesting all the way around on this map because you can splash and take down all sorts of stuff across these bases very, very rapidly. Mutalisk play can be a challenge because you can see you've got a nice edge right here. Marines can filter in, but then they got to worry about other locations. And you still need the Lurker's eggs open to go ahead and engage there. Regardless. Natural expansion being built. 2 Zerglings being evolved. And drones now cycling into that Vesping Geyser. Looks like it is going to be a 2... From what I'm seeing, this is going to be a 2-hatch Mutalisk opener. Royal grabbing that expansion immediately after Barracks with his front door sealed in. That Overlord able to get the edge of it. I do not believe that Royal was able to get the scouting information himself. Still hasn't sent out an SCV that I've seen himself. Looks like, okay, now he knows location because that Overlord spotted. SCV can cycle across here because of those edge minerals, by the way. Zerglings blockading what functions as a ramp. Let's see if they wander up. This is clever. So Royal creating some concern that there would be a scout coming from the pure rear, and instead sneaking back out. I think he knows he can change directions. A lot of options to get the scouting information. At the very least, able to get into the natural. Look at the drone saturation here. Wants to get into the main to look at the gas timing. Going to go ahead and break off that SCV and have it escape through the north, away from that Zergling. You can just pocket it there and maybe bring it back later. 1 Barracks Academy thus far. And 3 SCV continuing to mine gas. Wonder what this is going to turn into for Royal. I have not... I've seen the 1 Rack's engineering bay, unless I'm missing the engineering bay behind here. No, I'm not. But I have not seen 1 Rack's Academy. Is he going to follow this up with a factory? I'm curious to see. So no, okay, sorry, going for the 2 barracks. Huh. Now, I'm not a Terran, and don't know Terran plays, but that, I don't know, it was a bit different. Usually I'm used to seeing the 2 barracks before Academy rather than the Academy before the 2 barracks. That is going to allow much more rapid range. Royal moving out with the medic to press against the Zerglings. The Zerglings looking to get a surround, able to pick off a lot of initial Marines, and this might have been a misstep from Royal as he's very rapidly losing that attack force. And now actually might, with more Zerglings just being flooded out from Royal. Yeah, SCV gonna have to pull off the line to help defend the supply depots, but keep in mind those Zerglings. Okay, no Zerglings being dedicated to go for that backstab. This is a lot of Zerglings, though, to be produced by Hero this early. Zerglings that are not, in fact, attack troops. It looks like they are going to work on those rear eggs to maybe go for a backstab. 3rd barracks being dropped. I wouldn't be shocked to see a 4th barracks. He's going to need a lot of Marines very, very rapidly to defend both fronts. Zerglings again testing that front. A bunker being placed, yeah, to worry about that right-hand side, but Hero isn't coming from the right. He's coming from the left. Kind of a clever play. I think coming from the right was what would be expected. And actually, that bunker's not in position to defend that natural. Missile turret also being built. We have some Mutalisks grouping up on time to provide some harassment. A lot of turrets additionally. So it's going to be 3, yeah, so 3 barracks plague. The Mutalisk's going to press in, see what is on the field now. If those Zerglings are able to breach through and assist these Mutalisks, that could be devastating for Royal. 1 egg remains. Mutalisk grouping up, and this could be a game-ending maneuver. This could be a very fast one. Mutalisk trying to do what they can, working on that supply depot on the front. any entry that's opened, honestly, could be game-ending. And Royal doesn't have the SCVs, etc., and actually opening up the front himself with that barracks. So supply depot down. The front's now opened. The Zerglings aren't flooding through, and that's got to be a little bit of confusion. That Royal also in the red at critical moments here. Making his way to the main, doing some damage. The Zerglings now grouping up. Unfortunately, if they were just at the natural, they might have been able to attack from there. More Mulisks in larger numbers, +1 weapons is being upgraded. I think the Zerglings, I wonder if Hero's debating whether to move Zerglings. He could honestly attack from 3 directions right here. The Mutalisks at the natural, the Zerglings flooding in from the natural, and the Zerglings attacking the rear at the main now, once he opens up that front. Additional turrets, all sorts of turrets. That was going to be 5 turrets here at the natural. Marines trying to group up there. Hero, again, showing his impressive micro. Actually a supply lead right now. Not a lot of workers, though, so he's basically all in with this attack force. Lost 2 Mules. The Marines actually moving out from Royal, trying to alleviate some pressure. The Zerglings scattering across the line. The Mules are potentially going to have to regroup. Ooh, medic being saved by a stim, actually, I think, to draw the medic forward more than anything. But still getting picked off. Man, Hero's so good. Just an absolute sniper. Rear egg being cleaned up. The medic Marines may be in positions to deal with it. It's going to be a question of where does the engagement happen now. Zerglings peeking through. The Zerglings can wipe out those turrets. The Marines making the way this direction, fighting the Zerglings at position. They're spreading all over the place to take care of the turret lines. SCVs pulling off to try to battle them, to keep those turrets up. The turrets fall. The Marines now engaging Mutalisks and Zerglings, able to clear the Zerglings out, but a lot of turrets have been felled. But the Mutalisks just eating massive amounts of damage from those Marines with their +1 weapons in open field. So not able to get a lot else out of this. More Mutalisks grouping up. Supplies even. So Hero could, just through pure Mutalisk micro, potentially win the match here. +1 weapons has been upgraded. Looks like he's going to walk out a drone, potentially to grab a 3rd base as well. Has added a few additional drones to play some economic catch-up. Grouping up, hold positioning these Mutalisks with greater numbers, wiping out that Medic Marine force. More Medic Marines trying to push in. 7 Mutalisks remain, but Royal down to a skeleton crew of Marines. Drone going to grab the base top right. More Mutalisks grouping out outside the natural expansion. Keep in mind, this is 3 barracks production, not 4. A Valkyrie being added to try to defend. The onslaught from the air, natural expansion. Sorry, the main being battered by these Mutalisks. Valkyrie finally joining the fray. No Scourge out as of yet to help deal with it. That is splash damage across all the Mutalisks for every TAC missile there. More Mutalisks being constructed. Still, a lot of damage on the Mutalisks that remain. That is going to keep a 10 count, however. But this is giving Royal opportunity to stabilize, actually regaining the supply lead. However, isn't going to be able to halt that additional base. Hero still pressing his luck. Pushing in. I don't see any Scourge joining the battle. Double Creep Colony dropped to contend with potential Marine pushes. And it's a long distance to travel, and I don't know that that base has been scouted in the top right. So Royal now moving out. Sunken Colony is being upgraded. Valkyrie's going to trail through, try to pick off some Overlords. Mutalisks regathering, and things falling apart all of a sudden for Hero. losing additional Mutalisks. The Valkyries causing all sorts of damage. Mutalisks being caught on reinforcement, and now the Medic Marine army making its way top right. As far as I can tell, no, we're not even near Hive Tech to support troops there. Lurker Tech has not been upgraded, so it looks like this is going to just be a dead base. Drones evacuating. Royal now with a sizable supply lead, and I was going to say, I can't call this the pure Valkyrie build. Hero, however, with his Mutalisks going to go for a base trade. He's like, okay, you're going to move all your troops top right. I'm just going to dive into your main and wipe out everything there. Able to kill a lot of SCVs with that. The Valkyries have made their way back. However, it's back to 2 bases versus 2. Now some Scourge. Potentially to dispatch the Valkyries. 2 additional barracks as well. A siege tank joining the attack force. +1 weapons, +1 armor. Scourge patrolling to box out the Valkyries from supporting the Medic Marines. Lurker's moving up. He wants to go ahead and wipe out this Royals army so he can grab that third. But the Lurker's actually peeling off. Now keep in mind the rear was open. So the Lurker's actually going to go for a game-ending maneuver at the main. We do have turrets here, but not a lot of Medic Marines. We have everything here. This is a great formula. That was comsetted. Did it see the Lurkers, though? The Medic Marines are remaining. They're gathering up momentarily. Now starting to head back. This could be a race. 2 siege tanks grouping up in Royal SimCity. Rare to see a SimCity for Terran to have being that their choice defense. Lurkers not able to get across the low ground as tanks sieging them. It looks like the Lurker is going to back up. Medic Marines trapping them. Clever play right there. Dropping the assimilators so those Lurkers now cannot escape back out. So they're just going to burrow to the north, work on those Zerg eggs there, but with all of those troops out of position and trapped in that failed backstab, Royal just going to move up with everything he has. Irradiate the latent Lurkers there, and he's got Siege Tanks, Medic Marines, and is capable of busting this natural expansion. Mutalisks making a beeline to try to provide some support, but even if they get here, I don't know that that's going to be sufficient to defend the natural expansion. So the natural going to fall and irradiate on the Mutalist. There was a good split there, but the Valkyries, yeah, GG from Hero. Great play from Royal. And Royal, oof. It's like, yeah, I do the Valkyrie build, but I do it when it's an emergency and when I need to bail myself out. Because then I can, yeah, just make it work as a last second thought. Yikes. All right, we're going to move to the final match on Allegro. Royal looking just incredible. In usual situations, I would say through various points of that match that, oh yeah, this is going to be a hero win, no problem. But with Royal, it's another story. Another story altogether. So we're going to move to the final map. On Allegro, bottom right-hand corner we have Royal as the purple Terran, bottom left-hand corner we have Hero as the orange Zerg. Keep in mind Allegro has the closer rush distances between spawn locations, but if you're Hero, what do you do? The thing I wanted to comment was, yeah, it looks like Hero might have an advantage on kind of the odd maps. The ones that are a little bit atypical, like Nemesis, like Odyssey. But the performance on Nemesis proving Royal's dominance. And in this best of 7, this one is this last game especially on a 4-player map, might be a point of pride for Hero to show that he is relevant, that he is capable of taking a championship. Otherwise, his best bet in the next season of ASL is just to hope that someone else eliminates Royal on the way through. Initial supply depot being planted at the natural expansion, which leads me to believe we're seeing more defensive play from Royal, maybe wanting to go racks into expansion. First Overlord Scout. This is the other aspect of this, is Hero's gotten first Scout with his Overlords, I think, in every match thus far. So he's had the information advantage, and it still hasn't produced results. Drone trick. Maybe is thinking about going for those initial 6 Zerglings because of that closer starting that factor of having the closer starting points overall. Drone wandering out to scout the upper left-hand base, which definitely leads me to believe that we're going to see some Zerglings fielded. Overlord being produced. He wants to see where he's going to send that attack. 6 Zerglings to be fielded. Overlord finding that base, so that drone looks like it's, rather than drawing all the way back, going to drop an additional expansion at the 9 o'clock. Efficiency, efficiency. But will the front door be sealed? So Royal, grabbing that expansion, pausing on additional Marine. That's going to slow down. This could be a quick one. So an SCV needs to get out here and blockade. And on top of it, this supply depot is not going to be constructed as these Zerglings are here. If they kill the SCV, that supply depot potentially could get wiped out. And there's no Marines right now. This could be game over right here. It's down, single Marine out. SCV's pulling off to blockade the ramp. They are able to at least seal that ramp. 1 SCV dying. The Zerglings marching out now to the natural. SCV's trying to get a surround. 2 Marines now out. The command center remains in construction. Hero not quite able to get his Zerglings through the line. It looks like he's just going to exit with what he's got. Incredible defense by Royal. Just loses his supply depot for his effort. And might have even got a cancellation. Hero dropping his 3rd hatchery at his natural expansion. So and I don't even know that that command center was delayed. So a bit of lost mining time where you had to pull the SCVs off the line. But otherwise, not a lot of disturbance. Lost 1 SCV. Shows you what you can pull off at the top level like this. That would be game over for so many other players. Refinery being tacked on. 2nd barracks for, I am going to presume this is going to be 2 racks opening play. Overlord making its way top right. Maybe to support early game Mutalisks. We do see a morph to layer here. Hero off to a pretty fast start economically otherwise, though. In a good, comfortable position. Got that extractor up on time. Lifting off that barracks to push those Zerglings and also check the count. Wants to get that. One problem for Royal is he wasn't able to get a lot of scouting information on Hero. He doesn't know whether... He just has 0 scouting information. Doesn't know the extractor timing. Doesn't know whether there's a 3rd hatchery out in the field. The SCV trying to make its way out to, first of all, see that 3rd hatchery, maybe see the drone saturation. Once he's there, refinery, take it back, academy, followed by engineering base. We are just seeing the 2-rack style, so should see some medic marine pressure out on the front. Hero, and I've seen Soma recently, try to get away with the defense with just a single creep colony to start. Usually that's with an larger initial Zergling count. Let's see if he can pull it off this time. But look for Royal to, comsatting the front. Wiped out all of the Zerglings. That should force a 2nd creep colony. And a mutation. Moving out, and there's no way for Hero to spot whether these Marines are being fully dedicated or not, or whether they're backing up or not. One Sutton colony being morphed, the second is being morphed. Medic Marines, however, moving back and forth and also forcing 2 creep colonies at the 9 o'clock position as well. I think Royal was thinking about testing that 9 o'clock, but backed off initially before pressing back in. Few Zerglings out to try to find that attack force. 1 Marine being broken off to go ahead and check that top left-hand base. 3 barracks up and running. Factory being built to get rapid science vessels out. Spire is finished. Initial 5 Mutalisks. Make that 6 Mutalisks to harass Royal's economy. Royal hasn't planted down turrets as of yet. Kind of curious how he knew to build. This is like the dark arts. How did he know these Mutalisks were going to come out just a little bit later with the complete lack of information that he had? Because usually Mutalisks are right here at the 6:30 mark, right? Maybe because he knew that it was a 9 pool opener. Anyway. Probably something along those lines. These geniuses at this level. Probably exactly what it is. Marine top right has already gotten 2 kills. I think that was a... But just making sure additional bases aren't being snuck by Hero. The Marines on a defensive slot. 3 turrets respecting Hero's harassment. Still able to get a lot of damage done. Hero actually at a solid drone count in the mid-game. Is not upgrading +1 weapons this time. Is going straight to Hive since he's got this quick third gas under his control. Evolution Chamber being morphed as well. 3rd barracks being moved back. Siege tank being produced, so it looks like we are going to see an attempted bust at the natural, or potentially the 4th, and an armory being placed as well. So I'm almost wondering if we're going to see a mix of siege tanks. We've seen a lot of that, the Valkyrie builds like I was talking about, so maybe this is the first time Royal's saying, okay, we'll show it for the last game. I'm curious if we're going to see Valkyrie rather than Science Vessel here, where it's so a Science Vessel Valkyrie siege tank press into what Hero has out in the field. Yeah, there's the initial Valkyrie being constructed. All of the tools to breach a mid-game Zerg defense. Hive Tech just about finished. Hydralsten is up. I'm not sure if I missed... yeah, I missed Lurker Tech being upgraded because Lurker's starting to take the field. Mutalisks have been mostly quiet after that initial engagement at the natural expansion, sneaking back behind the lines this time and able to get amongst the SCVs. They see the armory, which should be a big indicator, and also see that machine shop. So they're going to work on that machine shop briefly, engage with that Valkyrie to try to stop Siege Tech from upgrading. Royal, having been spotted, is just going to move out with what he has. Some Lurkers engaging midfield. Machine shop under heavy damage. The Valkyrie trying to draw the troops off. The Lurker's not able to burrow. And does Siege Tech finish? It looks like not. So now Royal going to be stuck outside the natural expansion with those siege tanks and is going to miss that timing. More Valkyries starting to move out. So if he's going to have to attack it, he's going to have to attack with unsieged tanks. Nice defense there by Royal to disrupt that attack. Second machine shop being built. Siege tanks being held away to try to protect them. It looks like some overlords have been picked off by Valkyries, putting Hero in the red, but Hive Tech is up. The Filer Mound's there. Consume being upgraded and a Greater Spire being morphed as well. Seen a lot of Greater Spire play recently. The Lurkers being pecked away at outside of the protective rung of the Sutton colonies. Dropship being added as well to allow even more chaos here. Scourge able to pick off the Valkyrie, which is going to prevent that dropship from pushing forward. And now Hero in a pretty solid position. And against any other competitor, I would say, maybe in a good slot to win it from here, but this is Royal. Tank sieging now outside the national expansion. Defilers just spawning. It's a game of timing now. Consume is up. An egg actually being... haven't seen that before. Siege tanks exposed and getting wiped out. There is another siege tank and more dropships, so it's not over yet. Looks like they're going to reposition to the 9 o'clock. There is a Nidus Canal and lurkers and hydralisks to potentially defend this. Some disrupted mining. Hydralisks pressing up. The lurkers not able to keep the Marines away from the drone lines, so several drones bleeding out. The Marines pressing in otherwise. However, the lurker able to attack from both angles, and now Guardians that were morphed off that Greater Spire moving up as well to try to defend this 9 o'clock base. Units coming through that Nidus Canal, and Royal expending everything. Just going to call GG right there as he's not able to breach. And with that, the final game goes to Hero. And in the one match where we saw a more Valkyrie style build, go figure. Regardless, I'm still going to say that with 4 wins to 2, is that right? No, 4 wins to 3. Despite those 3 wins from Hero, I don't feel like those 3 wins were very convincing. And potentially you'll agree with me. Royal still looks ferocious and like the more dominant player in these matchups. Regardless, hope you guys enjoyed it. Hopefully this will be an interesting preview of potential matchups in ASL Season 15. Appreciate the viewership and all the support. Thank you for listening.